Hi, everyone. I'm Julia. Before I start my talk, I really want to give a shout out to all of the amazing organizers who organized this event. And also, Code for Good Week is amazing, and it's so important. So thank you for having us here. Yay. So I'm here to speak about IFME. So IFME is an open source project that I started and founded in 2014. It's a mental health communication app that allows people to talk about their mental health openly in a private and safe space with their loved ones. So yeah, before I delve into the details of the projects, I'm going to talk a bit about me. So I'm Julia Nguyen. I'm also a Fleur Child on Twitter. So this word Nguyen means crazy in Vietnamese, and this word is really significant for me because growing up, I'm Vietnamese Canadian, I'm from Toronto. I grew up in a low-income family, and we just honestly didn't talk about mental health or mental illness. And in fact, I was diagnosed with mental illness when I was 15 years old. I have OCD, I have anxiety, and I have depression, and I openly talk about it. And a lot of immigrant communities, a lot of communities that are more marginalized deal with this, especially English-speaking communities, communities of color, different communities where mental health is already a huge stigma. So it's really interesting thinking about how a lot of our vocabulary is like this. It's negative, and mental health isn't seen in a positive light. So in 2014, I came out with my mental illness. I started openly writing about, giving talks about having mental illness and struggling as a female computer science student. And in fact, I wrote my first article about IFME. It started off actually just as a personal side project that I had used to be able to talk about my mental illness and my mental health with my loved ones. But I had the really wonderful opportunity to talk about it and also talk about the issues I had being a university student, studying computer science, and juggling all of these mental health issues in model view culture. So they're amazing, and we are so grateful for them. But something that really came out of the project was I started talking about the project, and people became really interested in it. And a lot of people told me, hey, you should start a startup about this, and this would change the world and disrupt things, all of those stereotypical Silicon Valley things you hear. And I actually didn't want to take that route. I was really interested in making the project open source. And it's really interesting thinking about mental health and also the open source community. And the fact that mental health is such a stigma, it's interesting to make it open source, to make it open, make it out there. And open source has a lot of opportunities. Anyone can contribute to it, ideally. And it's really cool to think about how we can solve these problems with open source. And then, in addition to that, the idea of mental health being free was really important to me. Having grown up in an immigrant family that was low income and not having access to these resources, I think that it's really important that these resources are free, because when things are free and open, people feel liberated, people feel empowered to talk about it. So yeah, so we started the project in 2014, and it started off as mostly a developer project. The app is in Ruby on Rails, but we've evolved to include more people in open source. And I think one of the biggest misconceptions about open source is that only people who can code can contribute. But open source is everything. When we build software, it's not just developers making the decisions, it's all sorts of people. So we formalize as a process to have different types of contributors. We have designers, we have developers, we have writers, and we have user testers, and everything else in between. And I think making it clear that everyone can contribute in some way and that their background and their skills are valued is super important to get more people into open source, especially underrepresented minorities. But since this is an SF HTML5 meetup, and most people here are interested in being a developer, I'm just going to go into a bit detail about the actual development side of contributing to IFME. So like I said before, IFME is a Ruby on Rails app. We use jQuery in the front end, and currently we're looking into using React, because React is awesome and cool. And something really awesome about our project that I take a lot of pride in is that a lot of people who contribute to the project have never contributed to open source before. They're coming out of code schools, they're coming out of colleges, and they're learning to code, and they're looking for opportunities to contribute to something meaningful. So because of that, having documentation that is inclusive, that is accessible to all sorts of backgrounds and skill sets is something that we really pride. And as a developer contributing to the project, we have a lot of really important values that also hold true when you're contributing to software at a company, like having testing. And testing is super important. And one way we've been able to really teach people the importance of testing is through TDD, which is test-driven development. And then on top of that, code reviews, encouraging everybody to have ownership over the code base, even if they're not senior or have a lot of experience going through code. It's also a really good way to understand the code base and also the best practices. And then being a remote project and having people from all over the world contributing to it, including Ghana, India, Brazil, Australia, the list goes on. It's really important to have that community and be able to do things like remote pairing. And we're really thankful for awesome tools like Slack, which have helped us to communicate with everybody, and also Google Hangouts. And here are just some of the issues that we have on our GitHub. We tag them very meticulously, and we explicitly have a newbie-friendly tag to invite first-time contributors. And we're working on cool projects like sentiment analysis, accessibility, and also like improving test coverage. And in general, we value our contributors, and we want them to value each other. And in order to do this, the first thing any open source project should have is a code of conduct. If they don't have it, it's super sketchy, and you do not want to be part of that project. But this is super important, and specifically, we use the contributor covenant. Shout out to Coraline Ada, she's amazing. And this code of conduct is super important because it holds people accountable for their actions and also creates a template and sort of a mission statement for what a good, inclusive open source community should be like. And on top of that, open source can kind of feel like a giant black hole. You never get to meet the people who contribute. So it's really important to value our contributors. So one thing we do is we have a contributors page on our website, if-me.org, and we feature the blurbs and biographies of the people who contribute to our project. And specifically, we ask them to talk about why mental health is important to them and what it means to them and why they're contributing to the project. And it's a really great way to give thanks to people because open source is free labor, and the fact that it's free labor and it's all volunteer-based should challenge us to make it more inclusive and try to thank people more. And for folks who don't want to write their profile and go on about what mental health means to them, given that it is a very sensitive topic, we also give contributors the option to just put their names down and put a social media link. And for some contributors, even putting their name is too sensitive, so we're also open to just not featuring their name. And something cool that recently started happening was that a lot of contributors worked on really awesome projects. For instance, Pedro Paulino, he worked on the Brazilian Portuguese translations, and he got super interested. He wanted to give talks about IFME in his home country of Brazil. So it's really cool, like empowering contributors to be leaders and also be thought leaders in the areas of expertise they have. So Pedro here wanted to give a talk and asked me for permission. I was like, of course, you could totally do it. So yeah, things like that are super important, giving contributors opportunities to be leaders. And in general, as if you can't tell already, we work on really meaningful things. Mental health is such a diverse and broad topic, and we want to find ways to recognize how we can support people in different communities, not just the communities that we're part of. So we have a blog started by the amazing Bea Martinez, whose face that you saw earlier, and we talk about a lot of topics, and it's curated each month. We talk about wellness, we talk about workplace issues, we talk about body positivity, and all the awesome things like that. And recently, we actually got funding through Fun Club, which is great, and they're an amazing organization which you should support. And because of that, we're looking to actually compensate our writers because it takes a lot of emotional labor to be able to write about these topics. And most people who've written for us don't work in tech. They don't have cushy, privileged tech jobs. So that's another way to appreciate writers if you're able to get funding at all. And then something else we have is we have a resource page. It's a directory of a lot of useful mental health resources, education tools, hotlines. And what's really cool about this is that we've tagged it, and there are certain communities which are really beneficial to some people. So for instance, this amazing organization out of Oakland called Brown Sisters Speak, it's a community for women of color to support each other's mental health. And that's one way where it's really important to find the safe spaces you're able to communicate in. But if you can notice with this GIF, we also tag the resources by the languages they're offered in. And interestingly enough, or I guess, clearly enough, most of these resources are offered in English. So that brings a really interesting point about how mental health access and education honestly is only accessible if you're English speaking, if you're part of a certain class, if you're part of a certain society and community. And because of that, that made us really interested in doing internationalization. This is Zoraida Medrano. She is one of the organizers of Brown Sisters Speak. And she is extremely passionate about bringing more mental health education and awareness to Latino communities. And one example she talks about is how in a lot of Spanish-speaking communities, you just simply don't have the vocabulary, kind of like how I talked about earlier, how in Vietnamese, you're not taught what the word for mental health is. You immediately go to the word crazy or mental or just words that have negative connotations. So yeah, because of her and her influence and also working with outside communities like Brown Sisters Speak, we decided to internationalize the app in Spanish. And I just want to give it a shout out to all of the really amazing women that worked on this project. First off, Brown Sisters Speak. Maisha Hill founded this nonprofit, and she continues to do amazing things for women of color, especially Black women. And then these are the women that actually worked on implementing internationalization on our website. B. Martinez translated the entire app to Spanish by herself, and Bonnie Matson and my coworker, Sienna, they worked on implementing the app. And I've given a talk about this before, but there's a lot of really interesting considerations that you have to think about when internationalizing an app, not just from a technical side, but also from a vocabulary side. And it was really interesting working with B because there were some words in Spanish that didn't translate directly from English that had to do with mental health. So it's been a really interesting project, and we're also looking to translate to more languages. We're about to launch Brazilian Portuguese, and we're also working on German. And lastly, this summer, we're also a Rails Girls Summer of Code project, and every time I see pictures of them, like my heart warms, and I'm super excited. But Jenny and Sophie are both mothers of young children from Australia, specifically Melbourne, and they're working on our project for 3 months. And they're working on our Moments feature, which is our core feature to be able to write about your experiences, tag it, and also share those experiences with your loved ones. And what's really awesome about this initiative is that it allows for mentorship. And I think that's something that's super important about open source projects. You have your contributors that contribute things, that come and go. But I think when you provide them mentorship and opportunities to be leaders and opportunities for them to really grow as people, and even in terms of careers, it's super valuable. And I really like this quote by B. Martinez. She says, "We all have something to contribute to causes we deem worthy. Any worthy cause will value even the smallest contributions." And this is super important when it comes to open source, because the reason why open source isn't diverse and has this horrible reputation of being sort of like a prison where not everyone can be included. Well, not a prison, but open source is just kind of something that only, a certain subset of societies, stereotypical programmers can participate in. It's important to include everyone, not just technical people. And there are a lot of valuable contributions, like writing documentation, like filing bugs. And for a mental health project, in order to really think about how to improve people's lives in mental health and how to create a platform where they can be more open and be more authentic, it's just natural to include everyone and value all types of contributions. So I think it's important to find projects that do that and allow you to find leadership opportunities. So yeah, thank you so much for listening, and we are welcoming all types of contributors of all skill sets. You can find us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at ifme.org, and our web app is if-me.org. And if you want to contribute to our project during Code for Good Week, you can join us at the Code for America office on August 2nd from 6 to 9 p.m. We'll also be working with the amazing We Vote project. So join us, and thank you.